Welcome to A Flash of Beauty, the podcast, an audio experience dedicated to the further exploration of Bigfoot and the people Bigfoot has revealed itself to. What started as a documentary of personal narrative encounter stories and expert testimony has now shifted into a deeper inquiry into the forever changed lives of those that have witnessed firsthand this hidden truth. My name is Tobe Johnson, co-producer of Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed. Join me along with the crew and creators of this doc, director Brett Eichenberger, producer Jill Rimmon-Snyder, and cinematographer Michael Ferry, as we go back into the trees to sit down once again with each guest in search of the truth, no matter how strange. With me, as always, in tow is Brett Eichenberger and Jill Rimmon-Snyder. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
It's good to see you guys here. We have another great guest. That's what you say on podcast. In our case, it happens to be true. We do have a great guest. And if you haven't been able to tell, this documentary, Flash of Beauty, has an order to it. It's about an hour and 40 minutes long, and we are going to be interviewing these guests as close as we can in that narration order, aren't we, Brett?
Yep, that's right. We're doing the best we can to really expand upon the film, seeing as how we really only had about 90 minutes to 2 hours to work with.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't include everybody. So this is a great opportunity if you're new here to this podcast, to keep listening, because you're going to hear some great stuff that didn't make the cut. And it didn't make the cut because it wasn't great. It didn't make the cut because we didn't have the time. So you're going to hear some really, really fun stuff coming up.
Well, when it comes to guests, Mel Skahan is our guest here. He's in the first part of this documentary. He's a YAKIMA tribal member, former forestry manager, and he grew up knowing about this phenomenon in a way that's so unique, so unusual to the typical Bigfoot story of a roadside crossing or someone that was just happens to see a shadow dart in front of him. That not Mel Skahan. He and his grandfather, his great-great-grandfather, kind of walked him into this world on the Yakima reservation to deal with the reality of this subject matter. So, for me, I'd heard about Mel as soon as I came into this field. He was one of the first voices that I'd heard about, and he was the connection to Bob Gimlin, because as far as proximity is concerned, their families, the Gimlins and the Skahans, I believe there was this family connection that went back a long while. So I'd heard about Mel because I wanted to get access, first of all, to meeting Bob Gimlin. But then I found out that my girlfriend was doing outings with this dude, Mel Skahan. And he was really one of the first Native Americans that was willing to talk to me about his experiences. And he had some interesting stuff to talk about when I first met him. And we're going to talk about some of those things, those interesting things in this interview coming up. Jill, what did you think of our interview with Mel?
Oh, that Mel could be like a 3-hour interview. Instead, I felt like we were really limited. And kind of like what Brett was saying, in the documentary, we only have so much time to share, so much information. And he had so many great stories, and just his experiences were unbelievable. And I just wish we could have gotten more in. Luckily, he does make an appearance in our sequel, so there will be more Mel. We promise you there is more Mel on the way.
You can never get enough Mel. I'm just going to say that. And with that said, Mel is out there all over the place. So by all means, do the research, listen to this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And Mel's been a guest on Coast to Coast AM, I think, a number of times, and he's out there quite a bit. He's been very public and forthright with some of his stories on the reservation, and that's rare. That doesn't happen quite a bit, or very much, I should say. So definitely check him out.
Yeah, we get into some stuff with Mel about Mount Adams, which is kind of, for me, as far as like if you want to go to a Bigfoot place that's going to make you feel like you're going to have an experience, definitely want to come out here to the Olympic National Forest and go for it near the Hoh Rainforest or Forks, Washington, underneath Mount Olympus out here. But the other place you want to go is Mount Adams. I mean, it feels awesomely squatchy under there and unusual. And I've had strange stuff happen there. And Mel knows this place better than I ever could. He grew up underneath the shadow of Mount Adams. So we're going to talk about Mount Adams, talk about his experience out there, and we even get into a little bit of Brett and Jill's experience near Mount Adams, which was pretty unexpected. So without further ado, let's get into it with our guest from an undisclosed location in Everett, Mel Skahan. On with us right now is Yakima tribal member and former forestry manager, Mel Skahan. Hello, Mel.
Hello. Hi. How's everybody doing today?
Great, Mel.
Great.
We're good, thank you.
Thanks for making time for us here on Flash of Beauty, the podcast. And Mel, you're featured in this documentary kind of right out of the gate as an indigenous person, a tribal member of the Yakima Nation, talking about your experience from really as a child growing up, learning about the subject of Sasquatch underneath the shadow of Mount Adams. And I think it's a fitting way to start this documentary. But I mean, you've been involved with this community as well for quite a long time, and some people don't really know who you are because you kind of stand on the periphery, but you know so much. So talk to us first off. I guess I'll just go off with the initial question here of what it's been like to be a Yakima Nation. I almost called you an elder, but are you technically an elder at this point, or what does it take to be
yeah. At the age of 55, I became an elder of the Yakima Nation, so I am 55 years old now.
Yeah. And I mean, I should mention though that we just got done with a conference not too long ago. And this is really the first time I'd seen you at a conference in Yakima with other Yakima tribal members surrounding you. So let's just start there. As far as that experience of being a Native American and talking about Sasquatch, it's a very rare thing to see. So tell people about why that is.
Well, the Yakima Reservation is 1.2 million acres, and 750,000 plus is timbered, and about 2/3 or about a third of that is also like wildlife range, and then other acreage set aside for recreational purposes or like a do not touch area. Keep it pristine. Let it manage itself, so to say, while we manage the rest of it. And so that is where I grew into. My great grandparents used to take us up into the woods during the whole summer months as we were growing up. And my great grandfather would uh, tell us and show us the ways of becoming an adult, being in the woods, and how to how to navigate and how to kind of basically live the land that was around us. And so as I grew up into a teenager, those teachings that I got for him after he passed were a big deal for me, because a lot of people don't listen to their elders and what they have to tell you until you put yourself into a situation that's like, what do I do? What do I do? And then you think back, and then you're like, oh, okay, I was taught to do this. I was told to act this way and present myself in a certain light. And so growing up into that, eventually, as I got older, they, remembering the stories of Bigfoot that my great grandfather would tell us kids that were up there. and telling us not to wander off, stay close. And if we heard them at night, then don't go outside the tent. He what was funny about it was that, you know, him and my great grandmother Stell, his name was Tony, used to stay in a small RV prowler. And us kids, you know, we got to stay outside in small tents and everything. And we, you know, as kids, you enjoyed it. And but then hearing known animals, coyotes, elk bugling, you know, all these other animal noises outside, then you would hear something that was not something that you were told to listen for, but it would appear at night. And we'd have questions and stuff like that, but kind of got quiet. But and then as we kind of grew into the continuous nights and throughout that summer of hearing these howls and whoops and wood knocks and everything, we were eventually told who these people were that were outside. And so that was the reason why we had to remain inside while they, you know, were freely to move about, live freely about you know, while we were there.
Right. Well, with me here, of course, is the director, Brett Eichenberger, and Jill Remensnyder in the background. This was your first chance to sit down with Mel and film him basically in his own backyard. I'm not quite sure where you guys did the filming, but you did follow up on some of the things that Mel was talking about, including this place called Mount Adams. Now, Mel, you know, and I know that Mount Adams has its own storied history of strangeness going on beyond things of Sasquatch. But Jill and Brett, you had a chance to go there as well and have your own shared weirdness as well. So I don't know, talk a little bit about meeting Mel and following up on some of the things that happened to you when you went to his backyard.
Yeah, so we've gosh, we've had all kinds of experiences near Mount Adams, and actually recent experiences on the Yakima Reservation. And I don't know if Mel knows this or not. I'm deviating a little bit from your point here, Toe, but this is well worth mentioning. The last time that we saw Mel was this past summer up at the Yakima Sasquatch conference. And we left pretty early the day after we were done with our engagement. And I think it was, what, Jill? It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. It was still
Easily
dark.
5 a.m. Yeah, it was about
Yeah,
5.
easily 5. We had to get back to Portland. And we were on the reservation, and we were going up over one of the passes. I don't remember what pass it was, but we were about at the summit. And I said to Jill, I said, all right, there's nobody on the road. It's dark. There's a trillion stars. Let's pull over and kind of get a sense of the area and check out some stars. And so we did. And we were outside of the car for maybe 4 or 5 minutes, maybe not even that. And we heard a wood knock in the distance. And it's one of those things, you know, it's a wood knock. You know, it's that sound. And so we were like, whoa, okay, that's weird. We got a little bit of the chills. And then shortly thereafter came the scent. It was like blowing in the breeze.
And just to, Brett, I just want to jump in just to paint a picture. So where we were pulled over, there was along the shoulder, it was like there was almost like a little drop off, and there were trees kind of camouflaging like some cover, whatnot. And as I recall, Brett, the smell was coming, like if I was standing facing where we heard the wood knock, it was shortly thereafter coming in from about the 10 o'clock position from where those trees were.
Oh, your mic, Brett.
Oh, you're muted, Brett.
Sorry.
There you go.
Cut that portion out. No, I'm kidding. So yes, that's right about where we were. So anyways, long story short, that was our first experience on the reservation with something. There was something going on there. I mean, I don't think we can definitively say it was our friend Sasquatch, but there was something going on there. And we certainly got a feeling that night or that early morning that this was a storied place, just like Mel had told us.
Mel,
Right.
what?
And I
Go
know,
ahead.
I know, excuse me, I know the spot where you're talking about down Highway 97 on Sadis Pass, which is the reservation boundary at the top there. And
Yep.
that my story that I shared, my encounter that I shared with you about the hair, collecting the hairs, was about 4 miles to the east, or if you were traveling southbound, it would have been on your left side. Going 4 miles down that ridge line is where I collected those hairs.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's super interesting. And to refresh,
And then
sorry, I was just going to say, and go ahead.
and you know, I've been doing this for a long time. There's also, I don't know how many numbers of encounters from enrolled members and non-enrolled members that I've collected from that area that you're speaking of now.
Mel, when it comes to wood knocks, what do you think's going on with that? Because my sense is that maybe things aren't always what they appear. Brett heard what I've heard before. It sounds like a Louisville slugger hitting a home run on the bottom half of a Doug fir. Do the Native Americans talk about something else going on as far as wood knocks?
Well, my experience with them through my career in forestry, we've heard the single knocks, we've heard 2, 3, 4 knocks, and then we've also heard, uh, well, 2, 3, 4 knocks from one spot that you would hear in a far off manner, ravine, hillside. You would hear repetitive wood knocks coming back towards the one, or you would hear them thinking that they're talking back and forth to each other. I kind of associate those wood knocks to, if there's one person out there, you're going to get a single knock. If there's 2 people out there, which usually there are working with me, and occasionally up to 3 or 4, you'll hear 3 or 4 wood knocks come from close by, and then off in the distance, you'll hear the repeated 4, and then or 3 or 2, whatever the first one does. It's like what do you what how do you put a text or a page to let you know that we have people in the area. And I've heard one that was way out of left field where we were in an area. There were 2 of us, and the time we showed up to this spot that we were working in, it was like a woodpecker, just bang, 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 and he never stopped. And you're continuously hitting something repetitively, just over and over. You would get tired, but this went on the whole 3 hours that we were there. And then when we walked back out to the road, it was still bang, 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 bang. And then when we started the vehicle up and turned around and left, we didn't hear it anymore.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean, for anybody who hasn't heard it, it'll change you, especially when you know that the area you're in is cornered off and sectioned off and sound free, for lack of a better word, except for that specific moment. And it really is a way to be initiated into your own tribe for sure. Looking
Yes,
back,
yes.
go ahead.
Oh, no, no, no. I was going to say that um, they've also announced their arrival that way to maybe the ones that have circled around you. You think there's one, but there's always more than one.
Right.
And a few times one would announce itself, and then around us we'd hear another one or another and another, just single wood knocks. But when I hear them just do the first one, then I know they're there. How many, I don't know. And like I said, this has happened multiple times to me while I've been camping or working in my forestry job.
Well, So the spot that Brett and Jill were describing, I don't know that area like you all do, but you knew it very specifically. Is that a hot spot area? Did they just happen to pull over to stretch their weary bones in a hot spot?
Uh, yes, I think that might have been somewhere. I think it was October, November, that this may have happened, and I get a lot of reports from uh, members up in that area that are hunting or working in the area that they've heard wood knocks or they've had that smell. And I've had a few people because once you start climbing that pass, then you start getting into treed or forested area. Before that, it's all sage land, and so being in that cover for the morning hours or for the rest of the day, daylight hours, they can come out of there at night. And right next to that area, we had some experiences in an area called the Devil's Pocket. And when we first saw that on the map, we always kind of wondered, why do they call this the Devil's Pocket? And then when people come to me with encounters or stories from around that spot, I was like, oh yeah, you guys were in the Devil's Pocket area.
Yeah, there's part of the reason we pulled over there was that it just had this squatchy feel. And you're right, Mel, the landscape changes rather dramatically. I mean, it changed. It felt like it changed within about 5 miles as we started ascending up Highway 97. Of course, we were heading south, and we pulled over to our right, and you could see some peaks off into the distance from where we were pulled over. But yeah, there was definitely a feeling in the air. Of course, we've become much more attuned to that squatchy feeling over the last few years as we've been producing these films. So yeah, I don't know, but we definitely had an exciting conversation for the car ride home after that.
Yeah, that area is also popular for semi trucks to pull over because there's wide areas along there, and some of them will, report smelling something or something pushing up the cab or the bed of the vehicle that they're in, and they would when the forestry workers or other workers that worked out in those areas would come across them, they'd pull them over and start asking them questions, and that's how I would get my stories about the semi truck drivers resting for the night there.
Wow.
Very interesting. I've seen a lot of semi trucks. I've traveled up and down 97 for other related business and whatnot a few times over the last couple of years. And I know exactly what you're talking about with the semis. They're everywhere over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Mel, one of the things that you mentioned in the original interview that we did for A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, that we just didn't have room, or it's actually a whole other documentary if we were going to get into it. But you talk about in regards to the forestry land and whatnot on the reservation, you talk about the migration, the seasonal migration and whatnot. Do you think are the reports still accurate to that statement? Are people still reporting the same sightings the same time of year during the different migration seasons?
Right. Yeah, you were all in the lower Yakima Valley for the conference this last year. A lot of my reports in the wintertime come from down in that area because they're coming down for foods. The harvest, I started getting a lot of reports in the lower Yakima Valley for the apples, for everything that is grown down in there. And I don't tell a lot of people this, but when you're taking a report of movement and everything, they always ask for the direction of travel, time of day. You get all the information out of them that you can. I mean, size and everything else is okay, but what I'm more interested in is movement. as a hunter, you want to know when somebody sees an animal that you want to go out like an elk or a deer, and you say, "Oh yeah, I saw this elk. He was going this way, that way, that way." And then if other people have seen it, then you kind of know the direction of travel, and then that's where you kind of want to walk into that area, and then pretty much will know where this your target animal that you're hunting is going to be. So with Sasquatch, I was doing the same thing, and all the reports that I was getting of people that were seeing them, like from as it got dark from 10 o'clock on up until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, they were moving from the south to the north, which is off the hillsides and down into the lower valley. And other reports that I was taking of people seeing them after, say, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, they were moving north to south, back up into the highlands, back up into the ridge lines. And so I took it further and further and further, and talked to the elders and everything, and they always told me that we migrated everywhere around the Pacific Northwest, trading, fishing, hunting, and collecting our medicinal plants, our roots, at certain times when they were ready to be harvested. And so the same thing with Sasquatch is that in our area, within the reservation area, is that they were showing movement in the same pattern down in the valley from harvest time into late winter, and then in the springtime moving back up into the fringe areas in timber so that they could still kind of move down in case they want to collect more food. And then as the season progressed from spring into summer, moving up higher to where a lot of the huckleberry areas were, and the rest of the animals moving from the lower elevation because of the depths of the snow, and migrating back up into their roaming areas. So the elk would, the Bigfoot or Sasquatches would go back up in the high country again. And the last thing I put together was Mount Adams in the hot summer days. And this happened 3 times where we had vocalizations from the last of the treed areas up on Mount Adams, where the snow depths were anywhere from 2 feet and deeper, and they would be up that way to remain cool, which I would go up in the high area in the wintertime or in the summertime to stay cool, and so I started putting that together too of them. I never thought they would go up that high on the mountain, but they do.
Wow.
So Mel, when we first interviewed you, you were early on in our our documentary work, and we were still kind of forming an opinion or an idea as to who or what Bigfoot is. And we thought we had a good idea, but I think your interview, was very pivotal for us as filmmakers turning into kind of sort of researchers. And the reason why it was pivotal is because you described characteristics of Bigfoot and observations that you had made of them that we'd never heard before. And for me, that really started to flesh out the character of Bigfoot, if you will. And it humanized them quite a bit. One of the stories that you told that really resonated with me was the story about how you discovered some tracks in the snow and how you started following them, and some of the discoveries that you made about their behavior and who they were as you continued to follow them. And if you're listening to this and you've watched the documentary, I apologize that we didn't have enough time to put the story in because it was awesome. And further on down the road, we want to make these interviews available in their entirety, but we can't do that until after the next film comes out. So anyways, Mel, if you could kind of maybe talk about that a little bit, and some of the characteristics that you've discovered, including some of the curiosity of some of them, and kind of the fun and caring nature that some of them have demonstrated, that would be great.
as I've talked to many witnesses over the years and other researchers, um, the person that observes them the closest, and I always had the perfect job in order to do this. I mean, I spent 27 years, 26 years with the forestry program, the YAKIMA Nation, and then another 8, 9 years with the Forest Service just on the other side of Mount Adams. And so I had the perfect job to be with them, and then also learn to keep my mind open of the different types of experiences that I was having. And what took it to the next level of watching coming across them was these tracks in the snow. I was wearing snowshoes at the time with a coworker, and we were sent out on a job that was about a mile away from our travel, the main travel road in and out of the reservation that was plowed. So semi trucks hauling wood logs back down into the valley were constantly going by, and so as we were working this area, walking out to the area, I started noticing this track line in the snow. And I was like, well, somebody else is out here, because my snowshoes are, long enough to support my weight so I don't post hole into the snow. And I noticed that the biggest track that I started seeing, and it was big because of the sun. It was out on the flats, so it was melting, and it had gotten bigger. And I was just like, never thought anything, just another person out there. And then as I got down over the edge, then the track started to shrink, and then you started seeing toes in them. And when I started seeing this, I grabbed my coworker, brought him down to the spot. We looked at it, and he didn't say anything, and we both knew immediately what it was. And then I started tracking that one as it went like northwest up the creek bed, up on the southern slope of the creek bed. And I started looking at his movements as he was going through the trees, and what he was doing was that he was hiding behind a tree or going up to a tree. And if you look down at the ground, his left foot was on the left side of the tree and his right foot was on the right side of the tree, like he was stepping back and forth, looking ahead. And then he left, and then he went to the next tree. And he did this for a good quarter mile. And when my partner yelled out to me, he said he found another set, and we started following that. And this trackway was not like the first one, where it was just walking up the creek bed, not worrying about hiding from anything. So it is a straight line on the southern side of the creek bed. And then when we walked a little bit further, that's when we found the smaller track of a little baby that was about 8 to 9 inches in length. And this little baby would leave the mother so the big one was the father, the male, the medium one is the female, and the little one was the baby. And follow the mom, and then it would break away from the mom, go across the creek on the other side of the creek bed on the hillside there, and just work its way through the small trees and everything. And then it would come back down, and then follow mom for a while, and then break away again, and then go through the trees. And then as I was following it, there was this big log that was about 2 feet off the ground, snow covered. And then there was another tree across it, like a springboard. And what he did was he walked on this little springboarded tree, and then jumped on it, and then jumped off of it, and then went back down to mom. And then they walked up to the creek, and then he would do this every great once in a while, was break away from her and just explore and come back, while father, the male on the upper hill, would keep an eye out ahead, make sure that nobody was ahead of him, so that they could continue free. So that was the personalities that I came across to show that if somebody were to go to great lengths to do this, if it was human, they had to put a lot of detail in the trackway that they left behind for the protector, for the mother, and also for the child. And I followed these tracks for well over 1.5 miles, and then my coworker, we both got weirded out because we were further away from the truck, and we were also in the deeper part of the canyon. That we just decided to leave, and then when we left, I walked back a different direction than he did, and then that's when I found my first bed in the snow. And what this family did was push the snow out of this area, making this little clearing down to vegetation soil, because you could see the Oregon grape, you could see the grasses, and creating these berms all the way around. And it was about probably about 30, 40 feet long by about 15, 20 feet wide, and it was all cleared out. And when I had gone up to the berm, and it was iced over, so I took my hand and I rubbed my hand along that ice berm, and you could feel where they had the body heat had iced it, and also you could feel the hair impressions in that berm all the way around. I got to thinking, why would they put something right here so close to the road? And I heard a log truck go by, and then I walked back out to the road, and I looked back into the timber, and you couldn't see it. If you were seriously looking for it, you still wouldn't be able to see that there were 3 Sasquatches bedded down right there for a very long time. And my idea of the whole thing was, it's the only road, it's the only traffic going in and out. So you watch all the vehicles go in, you watch all the vehicles come out. Once they're all out, then you can move freely about the area.
Fascinating. Thank you, Mel.
You're blowing my mind here. I mean, I'd never heard that story before, but it seems to point away from them just being an animal. And we've talked, in the documentary back and forth about what these beings are. I mean, maybe beings is the best word that we can use. Did the Yakima Nation talk about what Sasquatch is, and do you differ with that? Where do you land with it?
Well, I've heard their stories. I've heard them tell me different things, that you don't go looking for them, you don't go chasing after them, you let them be. Rule number 1 is, if you're in their area and you're collecting, if you're hunting or if you're collecting foods, this is their home, this is what they live off of. We have to drop what we're doing, everything that we've collected right there, and then leave it for them, and then vacate the area so they can continue to live. And I've always carried this on through, up until I die, I will, because I respect them that much, because it's a hard life. I mean, to us, our lives are easy because we have so many different tools that we could use to survive. We take you out to the woods, we drop you off in the woods. There's no way that you're going to survive, because you're used to everything electricity, fire. And if you can't create that out there, then you will not survive very long. Where these people, that is their livelihood. They've lived as they were put onto this earth and know how to thrive. And I'm sure, our airplanes and everything else are still freaking them out, but they are coming to the understanding now, from talking to other people, of how we travel and what we do to come out to the woods. And that's the curiosity for them. At every visit that every human goes out there camping, you're bringing out something new. I got a new trailer, it can do this, it can do that. I got a new car, it does this, it does that. That's the curiosity for them, is that they've never seen anything. And up until 8 years ago, I don't think most of them didn't know what magnets were until they started playing with our tent. And then they were there for hours playing with it. So for them to, as for our elders to tell us that this is their home, it truly is their home, and we've got to respect them in theirs.
So, Mel, with what you just said about us going into their homes, um, what are the reports you're getting though? Like, what kind of interactions are people having on the reservation with them? I mean, are they friendly encounters, or are they just chance sightings, or are there reports of more aggressive, like territorial encounters?
I wouldn't call it territorial. I mean, the friendlier encounters are folks that are going out to be out in the woods, enjoying themselves. Those are the friendly reports. They kind of increase intensity of the type of activity that you're going out there for. You're going to go out there and shoot guns and everything. You're coming across them, and they come across you in an aggressive manner. Well, that's not what they know. What guns do. I mean, talk to hunters, and hunters point rifles at them, and they drop to the ground. They know what they do. They know what vehicles do, and especially the logging companies on the reservation. They're up there removing trees, reducing their hiding cover, changing their landscape that they have known and crossed through for generations. And so, the logging companies, the workers, are the ones that get the most aggressive behavior out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we get into that a little bit in the documentary with our Peter Byrne interview. I don't think he said aggressive, but he did mention a logging crew out in the Tillamook forest area. And there's certainly a lot of logging still going on in that area as well, including underneath the shadow of Mount Adams. And, Mount Adams is a corridor for weirdness in general, all the way up to Mount Rainier and between to Mount St. Helens. I think Kenneth Arnold had his flying saucer debut, racing over the shadows there and seeing UFOs and such. And my connection with Mount Adams is a little place called East Ranch. And if anybody's ever been to East Ranch, then you know where I'm going here. And I want to ask you, Mel, about places like that claim that Mount Adams is a gateway, that it is more than just a mountain, that it's more a dormant volcano, if I'm not mistaken. Something else is going on there more mysterious than even Bigfoot, perhaps. Talk to us, if you know the story of Mount Adams from, a Yakima perspective of the history of Mount Adams and the weirdness attached to it.
Well, when the reservation boundaries were created by our treaty signers, they were the ones that negotiated Mount Adams. They also negotiated the Go Rocks and all the riverways into the finalization of where they wanted to be put. So, the mountains for us are life because they provide a lot of the water and also a lot of the weather patterns that affect the area. For the weirdness of it, I mean, I've had, as I said before, I've had encounters of Bigfoot up there. I've finally, came across this about 12 years ago, of seeing multiple trackways up there, and also I know where Ixteti Ranch is on the southwest portion of the mountain. But my feeling is that when they see something flying to the north away from them and they go towards the mountain, there are a lot of deep ridges up on that mountain that they say that there's a portal or there's a hole there. I've summited Mount Adams, I think 5 times now, and I've, I couldn't tell you if there is a portal up there or anything weird, but I've seen UFO activity in that area because you're higher up you're out of the light pollution and you're able to see a lot clearer. And I've seen multiple uh, events happen either on that trip, on the trips that I've been up there, or on the reservation side where we had one come out of the atmosphere. And I think this is the kind of the confusion of the movement, because what I've seen one night was a Cessna plane come around the north side of Mount Adams when I was on the east side. We had a big historical uh, fire on the east side of Mount Adams that I was taking pictures of at night. And I heard the Cessna go over. And then as I'm watching the Cessna come around the mountain, coming out of the atmosphere way above it, and then practically right at its same level behind it was this big white light. And through the thermal, through the Gen 3 monocular that I was using, it was green, solid, and kind of erratically moving back and forth behind it as it was trailing behind. And you could hear the Cessna go over the top and then to the east of us. And then right behind it was this bright orb, and it was following right behind it. And I don't know if the airplane knew it was behind it, but I think I got about 45 seconds of video of that I could share with you guys at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's a big yes.
Yeah. Question for you, Mel, about that area. Do you have any idea or theories as to why this particular area? I know there's some floating theories out there that volcanoes have, there's a lot of UFOs around volcanoes all over the world, and maybe the volcanoes have got some sort of energy thing going on. But what are your thoughts about why this area is so active?
Well, it's mainly roadless, and you don't get a lot of people up in that area, and the people that you do eventually get into the area are the ones that are reporting, the UFOs or the Sasquatch reports. And I know on the west side there is one parking area that's right around, I think it's about 7,000 feet, and that's it. There's no other roads um, within about 3/4 of a mile to a mile that go around the mountain. And then on the reservation side, on the northeast quarter, you have a totally almost inaccessible area of the lava flow that I've worked in, and I dreaded working in, and made the comment that I would not, put my worst enemy through this torturous 2 or 3 days that I was in there, because it was almost impossible to get around. But we do have Sasquatch reports in that lava flow on the northeast side of the mountain. And then to the west of that and to the north is our traditional huckleberry gathering grounds, and where I always get a lot of reports in the summer and into the fall. And I've had numerous encounters myself in these areas. And so, being roadless and only backpackers, and I can tell you that a lot of the Yakima people aren't backcountry people. So you get your horseback riders that go up and hunt the larger non-pursued elk in that area. So it's every great once in a while you get people that go up in there. It's the same way if you were to concentrate on the goat rocks. The goat rocks on the northwestern part of the reservation is also roadless on the Yakima reservation side, with a jeep trail that goes up into it. And I get a lot of reports out of there, and there are a few people that camp throughout the whole summer that have had interactions with them. And I'm not going to share any of those with you because I was told not to, but there are interactions if you in that spot on the reservation side, and also on the Forest Service side, on the west side and on the north side.
Mel, one of the questions I have for you has to do with trading. When I had a chance to talk to some people near Chehalis, Washington, on a reservation in, I guess it'd probably be southern Washington area, close to Vancouver, Washington, they were talking about active trading between Sasquatch and people on the reservation, things like salmon for tobacco, things of that nature, face to face trading. Is there anything, I know that sounds spectacular to a lot of people, but if these creatures or these beings or these people exist, then something like this, I believe, is possible. Is there any stories like that still coming out to this day of people that have contact, what I would call, extended contact with them to that level?
Well, um, I would say not that I've heard continuously, but I do hear far away or second, third, fourth, fifth hand stories about that. And I shared earlier that hunters, when they go up and they know if they're in the area, they have to leave the animal or portions of the animal. And so every time I would go hunting, that's what my partner and I would do. Is that it's so hard to chase down an animal without a rifle, without being able to down it right away. Put hours of stalking into it to get them comfortable. So when we would leave prime cuts of meat for them, and so that would show our respect towards them. And I think all the food trading and all the trading and everything like that is a whole trust thing that they won't do it to you with you right away. You have to repetitively be in an area for them to know you, to know your vehicle, to know your scent, to see you in order to trust and know that you're only there for a short amount of time and then you're going to be leaving. And so I think that bartering and trading system happened to us a couple of times where we would go out away from the vehicle and do our hunt and then come back a couple hours later, and then underneath the windshield wipers they always left us something like a feather. We found a turkey feather underneath our windshield at one point, and you could say that somebody may have put that there, but we created our own little trail to get back into this spot, and it would have been impossible for anybody to, well, I'm not going to say impossible, it would be very difficult for somebody to follow us in to know that we were there. So that type of training that we have with myself with them is out of respect and thanking them for allowing me to be in that spot.
Amazing. Just real quick, did you say the turkey feather was underneath the windshield wiper or underneath the window?
It was underneath the windshield wiper.
Okay, gotcha.
The driver's side window.
Wow. Okay.
And
it makes all the difference.
There's no chance it was wild turkey inserting a feather from his own self underneath your windshield wiper.
No, because this was a single feather, and it was at the midpoint of the driver's side windshield wiper.
I got it. It was a turkey.
That's
squatch.
what I thought.
Yeah, turkey squatch. Hey, Mel, thank you. Gobble, gobble, gobble. That's the new call. Our guest today has been Mel Skahan. I don't want to keep all your time here. Brett and Jill, before we let him go, any final questions?
Mel, when are we going out in the woods?
Hey, the zapping thing happened over at Lake Quinault, so we could try to see if the female is still there.
Oh, wow.
I'm game. I don't know about these guys, but I'm up for adventure.
Let's melt a little bit of snow, Mel. Why don't we? And get up there later on this spring.
Yeah, we got some areas that we go up into that currently have, we get repeated visits, and I never thought that was going to be possible when I moved off the reservation. But what I knew and did over on the reservation while I worked camped, brought it over this way, and the same ideas I'm finding in the areas that we're going into now.
Well, this won't be the last of me either, Mel. I will see you at an upcoming conference. Mel Skahan will be speaking actually Friday before Flash of Beauty in Forks, Washington. We're having the second annual Forks Sasquatch Days. If you're interested in meeting Mel and getting some firsthand knowledge of him dropping bombs, Bigfoot bombs all over the place, come check it out in Forks, Washington. That's coming up Memorial Day weekend in Forks. You can go to sasquatchthelegend.com to come check out Mel. Mel, I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate you coming and committing to Memorial Day weekend. We're going to have a lot of fun in the future.
Well, I want to thank you, Joe Brett, for, making me, coming to me and then allowing me to speak in front of you and sharing my stories and everything else for the Flash of Beauty and its sequel.
Our pleasure, our distinct
you.
pleasure, Mel. You've been a massive addition to our films, and we can't thank you enough.
All right. Thanks again, Mel. We will talk to you soon.
Okay, we'll talk to you all soon.
This has been a Resonance Productions podcast. If you have questions, comments, or your own encounter story you would like to relay to the show, email us at bigfootrevealedpod@gmail.com. Also, if you're just discovering us, you can watch our documentary, A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, on most major video streaming platforms.